The last time I saw her, we were doing a community service project in Oakland. After I had my annual meeting of university students at the Clinton Global Initiative over in Berkeley, we came over here, and your mayor was in jeans painting. And I thought, that's the kind of mayor you want, somebody who's not ashamed to do the work. I'm really glad to be here in front of this historic old theater. I remember when Governor Brown was the mayor of Oakland, we first started talking about his desire to see this restored. So before I came out here while you were sweltering, I feel guilty. I actually took a little stroll through. It's a cool place. So I thank you for being here. I want to thank Barbara Parker and the other city officials who are here and the other community leaders supporting Hillary. I want to thank all of you. Tomorrow's a big day for America, and it is the beginning of the general election and our determination to make sure we keep going forward instead of going back, and that we do it together. Look, it's close to the election, and I'm not going to give you a whole long litany of stuff. I just want to say that two things. The stakes in this election are maybe even bigger than we know. Because, believe it or not, in less crude terms, the argument that Mr. Trump is making is being made all over the world today. Because of the real circumstances of people's lives. That is, we had this huge economic crash 8 years ago. America's in the best shape of any big country in the world right now because we got 15 million jobs in the last 5 years, and we've gotten more than 90% of our people with health care for the first time in our history, thanks to President Obama. We've gotten 900,000 manufacturing jobs to come back to America. And look at you. We have the youngest, most diverse workforce anywhere in the world. We rank first or second in the world in every scientific survey. Our party may be the only one that still believes in science. But all these surveys say that we rank first or second in the ability to generate clean electricity from the sun, the wind, and other renewable resources to lead the world away from the worst consequences of climate change and toward a new economic future that is sustainable with higher incomes, less inequality, and more upward mobility. We have that. We've got the best system of higher education and training in the world. We just need to redignify skills training for those good middle-class jobs that don't require four-year college educations. And we need to make it possible for every person in America to graduate college debt-free and for people to pay the debt off they got. And on this, I think Hillary's got the best plan. It's the only issue I'm going to discuss. College debt is the only loan in America you can't refinance. That's wrong. If we let everybody refinance it overnight, 25 million young Americans would save more than $2,000 apiece. That's the first thing. Then she wants to give everybody two choices. Average college debt in America is somewhere in the neighborhood of $24,000 or $25,000. Some people owe $200,000. And the worst case, I got a letter last week from a guy whose wife is a doctor who couldn't refinance her loan. So she graduates with $200,000 in debt, and then all she wants to go do is provide health care to poor people all over America. So she keeps doing it over and over and over again. She's done 4 different 6-month stints, and her interest rates are pretty high. So she now owes almost $400,000. This is scandalous. So Hillary's plan would offer two options. One, if you want to get rid of an average size loan in a hurry, you can do 2 years in an AmeriCorps program, and then 1 year of any kind of public service, and you get $23,500 tax-free to throw against the loan. If you don't want to do it, you can't do it, or you owe more, she would give everybody another option, which is to turn your college loan into something that looks like a home mortgage. And what do I mean by that? If you look around this crowd today, everybody in this audience under 30 years of age has a legitimate chance to live to be 100. and to live to be 100 healthy without the threat of Alzheimer's or other kinds of dementia because of the advances in biomedical research. Therefore, an education is a much bigger lifetime asset than a home. But you can get a 20 or 30-year mortgage on a home. She wants to give everybody 20 years to pay their debt off. If it's not paid off after 20 years, forgive the rest, and no matter how much you owe, you can never be required to pay more than 10% of your after-tax income a month. If you owe less, you would pay less. Now, just think what this would do. You could move out of your parents' house. If you got a job you took to pay the loan and you want to take another one you'd like better that pays less, you can take it now because your loan payment will go down. If you've always dreamed of opening a small business in Oakland, you can't do it if you got a college debt. Your credit rating's toast. But you could under this new system. Let's say you wanted to borrow $80,000 and open a little organic bakery. And you could do it now. Why? Because if, like most small businesses, you don't make much money the first year or two, you wouldn't owe anything on your debt. It's all tied to your income. If we did this, it would liberate the energies of millions and millions of young Americans, and we could all rise together. The reason we've got to stop being one of only 7 countries in the world that doesn't give paid leave, except for California, New York, and a handful of other places, is that the percentage of women in the workforce is not high enough. We don't rank in the top 10 anymore, and we always did before. When I was president, we all rose together for the first time in 50 years. We were 7th in the world in women in the workforce. Now we're 19th. We've got to have paid leave, equal pay, and affordable child care if we're going to do that. The other thing we got to do is quit fooling around with the politics of division and pass comprehensive immigration reform. And look, maybe the number one economic asset America has in the world we live in is the youngest, most diverse workforce. Why would we play politics with our gold ticket to the future that will give us broad-based prosperity? It's time to pass immigration reform and do it right. And then Hillary thinks that we should have a concentrated effort on a number of other population groups that are too left out. There's no reason the veterans' unemployment rate should be higher than the unemployment rate as a whole. One big reason is an inordinate number of veterans develop post-traumatic stress syndrome within a year after going to work. She wants to have a national, strong effort at mental health with community-based clinical facilities that will adequately allow our veterans to take advantage of what they can do. There is no reason that we still, in the face of all the evidence, are keeping too many young people in prison too long for nonviolent offense. She wants to let them out, but with the education, training, and job placement they need to function in society, and with a guarantee they cannot be denied consideration for employment by being forced to check a box saying they just got out of jail. If we're going to start again, they ought to be able to start again. And there's one more group that you ought to be aware of, nobody talks about much anymore. The fastest growing group of consumers in America are people with disabilities. But you can't consume if you don't have any money to consume with. In the communities in our country that have an aggressive plan to train and employ Americans with disabilities based on their abilities, they find they have the highest productivity rate, the highest attendance rate, the lowest sick leave. We've got to bring every group of Americans into this so we can all rise together. Now, there are 3 reasons. I hope if you haven't voted yet, you'll vote for her tomorrow and get some more people to do it and bring her home in November. Having the best ideas is only one. There are 2 other things, 2 things that could keep us from rising. One is continued political gridlock in Washington. President Obama has done a much better job than he often gets credit for because he's had a Congress that seems to measure its success by how many times they can say no. And you know, the truth is, I kind of feel bad for him. I know you'll find that hard to believe. I do. And you should feel bad for him. Think about it when you get up in the morning. What do? You go in the bathroom, put water in your face, and you look in the mirror. And if you're like me, you wish you were 25 again. But anyway, you look in the mirror. How would you feel if you had to spend every single day of a diminishing number of days on earth looking at the mirror in the morning and say, oh, good, I can go out and spend one more day making sure nothing good gets done for America? I do not believe down deep inside people find that satisfying. And all I can tell you is she has found a way, Hillary has, to get Republicans to support her in some numbers, enough to get things done in everything she's ever done. We were talking before I came out here. When we got beat on health care when I was president, Hillary went to work with Senator Kennedy on the Children's Health Insurance Program. It's a big part of Obamacare. 8.5 million kids are insured under it. It was passed with the votes of 75% of the Congress. It's a lot of Republicans. Then she got really worried about something that's been a cause of her life, the welfare of children in the foster care system. And we were facing a colossal problem with exploding foster care rolls and all these kids about to age out with no support for living, no education, no training, no job placement, just going to be thrown on the sea of chance. So she went to see the House Republican leader, the person who disliked me more than anybody in Congress. And I thought, she told me what she was doing. I'll never forget it. And I said, well, good luck with that. So she goes to see him. She said, now, Congressman DeLay, I know we don't agree on much. He said, Hillary, do we agree on anything? She said, yes, we do. She said, no matter how much you fight us, I know you adopted your children, and I honor you for it. And these kids stuck in foster care are just like your kids. They do not deserve to be abandoned to fate and then thrown onto the street when they turn 18. And he said, well, what happened? He said, and she told him the truth. People are afraid to adopt children when they're not infants anymore. They're afraid they can't influence the course of their lives. They're afraid to adopt kids when they've got special needs because they're afraid they can't afford to do that. So she said, you're a Republican. Let's give a whopping tax credit to people who will adopt non-infant children. A bigger one if they'll adopt kids with special needs. And you got to give us some money to support the social transitions that these families are going through and to help the kids that are going to age out anyway. Guess what? All I had to do was sign the bill. There was an 80% increase of adoptions out of foster care. And look, I watched her do this in the Senate. I watched her do this as Secretary of State. She will find a way to make something good happen. And that's important. It's one thing to talk about change. It's another to deliver it. The reason that Planned Parenthood, the Human Rights Campaign, the Congressional Black Caucus, all these immigration committees, the League of Conservation Voters, and others have endorsed her is they think that she can get our country together enough to start moving higher and moving forward together. And the third thing may be the most important of all. Hillary gave a speech in San Diego the other day. I don't know if you saw it, taking on Mr. Trump. Here's why that matters. Here's why that matters. All over the world, in less crude form, the argument he's making is being made. Why? Because people are saying everywhere, I'm really mad. We've had 8 years of no growth, 8 years where my wages are flat, 8 years where inequality is increasing and social mobility upward is going down. And we're frustrated. We think all our tomorrows are going to be like yesterday. And now in Europe, we got the biggest refugee crisis since World War II. Maybe we should have walls instead of bridges. In Africa, they got 6 of the fastest growing economies on earth and 3 big terrorist groups. And I could go through every region of the country. In Latin America, where people seem to be moving back toward open democracies, the biggest economy, Brazil, is a political and economic basket case right now. In Asia, we're mad at China when they do well because they manipulate their currency, and now when they don't do well, you see how much trouble that is. And they're doing what politicians do everywhere, playing on this super nationalist sense to push the Vietnamese, the Filipinos, and others around. What's all this got to do with you? We only have 21 to 25% of the world's income. Most of it somewhere else. If everybody else goes down, they can drag us back down. If we rise, we can take the world away from the kind of politics of division and wall building that will spell a disaster. And that's one of the reasons that I've been really proud of Hillary through this whole long campaign. She was the first and most forthright person to say, we have got to stop talking about our fellow Americans who are Muslims as if they were enemies. We need Muslims who love freedom and hate terror to help us win the battle of the social media. We've got to do this together. We've got to prove we can live together. All over the world, people are making three big choices. Can we build a future economy, a tomorrow economy with broadly shared prosperity and less inequality and more upward mobility? Or do we have to settle for making America great again? That's a code word, folks. I've been there. I grew up in the part of the country where people talk like that. Make America great again is saying, hey, I know your life is lousy, but I'll give you the economy that you had 50 years ago, and I'll move you back up on the social totem pole. Well, let me tell you something. America wasn't so great for a lot of people 50 years ago. And for the people who did like it, you can't have it again. You know, I'd like to be 25 again, too. But I can't. So I think it's better for me to think about how I can make the most of the rest of my life, don't you? America can achieve a 21st century prosperity. If we invest in infrastructure, if we invest in clean energy, if we invest in modern manufacturing, if we get banks to loan money to small businesses again, if we invest more in the science and technology bases in our colleges and universities and get them to create jobs in nearby communities, including here, if we give people whopping incentives to invest in urban and rural areas that have been left out and left behind, we can rise together again. But that's all tomorrow stuff. That's not yesterday stuff. That's the first decision. The second decision is whether our own diversity is a strength or a weakness. Do you want division or unity? You bet you do. Look at this. This is the future of America. Look at you. And the third thing is, do you really want to face the future with walls or bridges? Look, if there's security problems, of course you want a few security checks on the bridge, but walls are dumb. You can build this wall across the Mexican border. It's crazy. There's been no net in-migration from Mexico since 2010, but you could do it. And since we're here in Northern California, you might want to build a wall over the Canadian border. A lot of foreigners in Canada. You see where I'm going? Then you can have a seawall up and down the Pacific. You'll lose 200,000 jobs in the Oakland area when the port closes, and America will be on the verge of recession, but you could do it. Then we could build one up and down the Atlantic. Now you've just about closed us off to everybody, so you can send the whole U.S. Navy to the Gulf of Mexico. Oh, the airspace. Well, we'll have to send all the Air Force's airplanes up in the air. Now, you're laughing with me, but it's a serious point. You can do all that. You still can't keep the social media out. That's what happened at San Bernardino. And that's why we need the Muslims and everybody else in our country to say, everybody is welcome here. We love this diversity because our common humanity is more important than our interesting differences. Now, And bridges work better than walls. So if you want bridges, not walls, if you want unity, not division, and if you want a tomorrow economy, not a yesterday economy that won't come again anyway, Hillary's your candidate. And so if you hadn't voted or you know anybody that hadn't, I implore you to go out and vote tomorrow. People look to California. You represent our future. You represent all of our hopes for proving we can bring everybody along. We don't have to leave those people in coal country behind. We just got to put them on a different path to the future. We don't have to put up with the fact that the first Americans, our Native Americans living on reservations without casinos, are the poorest people in this country. They're actually rich. They're just as smart as we are. They'll work as hard as we do. And every single one of them west of the Mississippi can have a surplus of solar and wind energy so they could have free electricity there, sell the rest to you because you got a renewable energy standard, and use the cash to diversify their economy. And by the way, there is a mountain of research which shows, let me just make one Oakland specific point on this, that if you want to reduce inequality and restore upward mobility, it works better if people with low incomes and working class incomes live close to people who have other options, so they have role models, contacts, and options that would otherwise not be there. You need to build a city and a country for everyone. So that's my pitch. You got a day. Go get some more votes. And look, I know we could run this whole general election on Mr. Trump's greatest verbal hits. But the thing I liked about what Hillary did in her speech is to take the words he'd uttered and talk about the consequences to America and the world. I'm telling you, I understand why people are scared. If you have young children, you know the first time they failed walking home from school, all they want to do is run in and close the door. It can be a scary world out there. But you cannot close the door on the future. You cannot close the door on the rest of the world. And what you have here is the key to rising together. Inclusive economic societies and politics where everybody counts and everybody deserves a chance. That's what this election is really about. And the whole world is looking to us. If we turn in and run away, so will they, with terrible consequences. If we look out and rise up, a lot of them will follow along. And we will have what I pray for the young people in this audience, the most peaceful, prosperous, interesting time in all of human history. A lot of it is riding on you because you are living the possibility, you embody the possibility of all of our dreams for the future. So get out there and give her a victory tomorrow, and let's go win this thing in November.